Yeah, I mean, I think if you were to best to describe it, it's an all-in-one, on ice, off ice school. There's a boardroom aspect of it, which could be anything from video to mental performance, to nutrition, to learning how to talk to the media. So there's a variety of topics covered in that boardroom. Sometimes it's just allowing the players to catch up or get ahead on some homework, work in groups to finish that homework. The way our schedule sets up, you can call it like a regular job, day where you're working, call it a 9 to 5, and then your evenings are free. So I think one thing that gets overlooked is just the convenience of the schedule, the daily schedule. It's a Monday to Friday. If we're not playing on the weekends, we're not practicing on the weekends. So often parents that have been through the program or early on in the season, they'll make a comment like, he's home every night or she's home every night. What are we supposed to do with them? Because normally we're driving around the province or the city, going to workouts, going to practice, going to games. So I think that's a nice perk that people don't really realize until you're actually part of the program. Is just there's a lot of, call it family time in the evenings where kids can just be kids.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think the beauty of our program is the uniqueness to it, right? I don't think you can find another even youth sport program that offers what we have the ability to, right? And I think the beauty of it is it's all in-house, right? Like if you're talking, you're training on ice, off ice, then you start looking at, even recovering, right? So someone unforeseen gets hurt, you have your physio, your AT, your massage, like that's all in-house. The guys I know use the cold tub and cupping stations all the time. Like it's a pro level program for youth sports, right? And I think that too is overlooked of what actually goes on. I think families, when they come and they say, oh wow, my kid's going to be up in Testify working out. Yeah, but what is the workout, right? Like they're following Matt, Luke, Ashton, all the trainers upstairs, and it's on an iPad, it's detailed, it's recorded, it's individual, right? Versus, they're just up in the gym. So I think that's the uniqueness about the program, is that it's all in-house and it's all professionals that are tailored to your son or daughter with development in mind.
We have, I guess, two separate schedules now with the addition of the two new teams. So for my group, the U15 preps, they go to school from 7:30 till 12 o'clock in the afternoon. We have a bus that picks them up. They come over to the rink, and then in the afternoon time, there's going to be an on-ice session, a Testify session, and then one of those boardroom sessions that I talked about. So, we're usually done 4:30, 4:45, and then that's our day. The teams that practice in the morning, they're here 7:30-ish. There'll be an on-ice, the same thing in the morning. There'll be an on-ice, a Testify workout, some sort of boardroom, and then they go to school. And then their day will finish a little earlier. They finish school at 3:30. So, but you're still getting, the school, the workout, the on-ice, and the boardroom all in that time frame.
Yeah, and I think too with the addition of the teams, right? Like, so on Brad's side, his group that's coming in, they're grade 9s, right? So you need that 7:30 block as an extra credit, right? Whereas the older groups, the U17s, 18s, they'll start their day at 8:30, right? Just because they had already received that credit. So their day is 8:30, same deal to about 4:30, with the same thing in mind down at Shaftesbury, right? And yeah, I mean, day to day, the kids, when they first start in the season, it's the blind leading the blind, right? Like kids are like wandering, where are we going? Where are we going? Even come October, November, it's pretty fluid. It's kids control themselves and they know where they're supposed to be, what they're supposed to do. And that's, again, just trying to build habits into the kids' routines and life. So time management, all those details that come with it, right?
Yeah, then with the addition of the U15 AAA team, I mean, they go to school here as well. So they're here, 8 o'clock till 3:30ish. So they're getting all that stuff done and they don't even have to leave the building. I mean, I think, again, the other thing that, Jeff talked about, everything is in-house, just the convenience of, because you can get all of that stuff playing AAA or playing, in a other program, but I'm not sure there's many programs that have everything in-house. Sure, you can skate here, but then you got to go work out there. If you want to do something else, you got to go to another location. So, I think parents maybe sometimes lose sight of what their time is worth, driving around and going to all these different places. So I think that's, again, as a parent myself, if I could get all that stuff done for my kids during the day and then have the evenings free, I think that's a plus. And I think for us as coaches that are here all day, we get to see the morning group skate. So, I mean, if we're looking for new drills or if we're looking to bounce ideas off of other coaches, we have that ability, and, vice versa, where if they're hanging around in the afternoon and they see something that maybe we've done, say, oh, maybe I want to try that with my group, right? Even the players, seeing other teams practice and habits and that sort of thing. So I think it's just a win-win for everyone.
Last thing I would, kind of expand and touch on is just, for Brad's team, U15 prep, my team would be a team that we could call up, right? Use it, and being on the same schedule, if we need him for a practice or for a game, he doesn't have to change anything, right? Their kids are here. It's just slide over, join our team. And then it's the same with the 17 prep and the 18s, right? They're in the morning. So Smitty with the 18s, he's going to ask Coach Ian, hey, can we borrow, little Brad? And Brad jumps over to Smitty's team. So again, just easy movement in and around, players getting opportunities daily for, this team or that team. And it's just constant, again, focused on development opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, if you look historically at, at my level, U15 prep, the big thing for these guys is the WHL draft, right? So if you're looking historically at the WHL draft, there's a high percentage of players that are drafted from our league. So that means a lot of those players are playing in our league, and you're going to have to play against those players, right? So I think the nice thing about our program too is it allows you to get outside the province, to experience, to see exactly what the caliber of player is at that level. So, if I'm we'll call it an A player in Manitoba, in Alberta, BC, Saskatchewan, there's probably 20 of those guys, right? So if you're that guy that wants to compare yourself apples to apples, okay, what is that guy doing in the game? What is that guy kind of doing to prepare? How do I get ahead of that guy if I want to be on somebody's draft list, right? So you're going to watch these guys in the game, guys that are, forcing, or not forcing, I guess, but playing against those teams. You have to make adjustments in your own game, right? So it's not going to be an easy night every night, maybe for some guys. And there's some really, really good teams and really good players in this league. So I think it's an eye opener, not only for players, but for parents as well, who, again, inside that Manitoba bubble, sometimes you're a real good player. You get outside of that comfort level, and it's a challenge at times, right? So you have to learn to adjust your game. So the travel of our teams is very similar to junior teams, right? So all of our games are played on the weekend. So you're going to travel from, Manitoba to Calgary to Edmonton, and you're going to play 3 games in 3 days, and your body's going to be tired. And how are you learning to, feed your body properly with nutrition and hydration and sleep and rest and all that stuff? What am I doing on the bus for 12 hours? Am I just staring at my phone, or am I taking advantage of the downtime, do some homework, right? So time management for these guys, if they can figure that out early, is really beneficial. Guys that kind of, let stuff build up as far as school and that sort of stuff, they sometimes can get into trouble where they're behind on assignments. Now we have to step in as a program, because we do have an education, the word I'm looking for, a standard, right, that players have to meet, right? So it's sure they're here to play hockey, but for us, education is as, or if not more important, that these guys are making sure that, they're taking care of that side, because we all know at some point hockey's going to end, right? For others, it's sooner. For others, it's later. But something you need to fall back on is making sure that you are, doing well in school.
Yeah. I mean, exposure for one. I think too, the focus, is on the present, right? Like, where are we at? I think we have to also remind ourselves and take that step back of, when I started 7 years ago with Brad at the U15 level, now I'm at the U17 level, and we have 2 teams, right? So there's a number of growth that's happened within our league. All, to Brad's point, it's all like better hockey players and better teams, and now you're seeing, different teams like ISA in Saskatoon and Star Academy down in the West Coast, right? So there's now more of an exposure, not just for our guys, but for the league, right? So now you have teams going down into the States. So now you have looks from, different areas and different regions. So the exposure piece is continually growing along with our academy and along with the program and the league. And I think too, with the vast majority of games headed out west, that's where all the Black Jackets, right, are, right? So you might showcase yourself here in Manitoba in front of, Calgary's scout, that's Manitoba's, representative. Then you go to Calgary and you're getting views from Calgary's GM, Calgary's head scout, right? So you're getting multiple looks if Calgary is a team that is looking at you or wants you or you want to go there. So you just got to get your play into the eyes of more people within different teams, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And with the amount of travel that we do have outside the province, it just, so scouts, if they're watching a certain player, they're going to see him in October, they're going to see him in December, in February, right? How has this guy grown, right? Is he the same player in October as he is in February, right? They've had multiple looks at the guy so they can track and chart all those, the different growths. If you want to say Seth is the poster child for our program, he's done obviously really well. And you could see, at Bantam at the time, U15, that he was just a driven kid. Like there was nothing that was going to stop him from getting to where he is now. And kudos to him for putting in the hard work, right? But like you said, there's been a lot of players that have come through that, have done really well for themselves in whatever level they're at now, right? Whether it's NCAA, it's, AHL, East Coast League, and, playing call or U Sports, whatever, right? Those guys are doing well. It's just, there's limited spots at the top, right? And, if you're fortunate enough to, sign a professional contract, to sign a scholarship agreement with, NCAA or U Sports, it's, it as coaches that have had a little bit of interaction or a little bit of in these guys' success, for sure it's rewarding, right? And then, it's always great to see them coming back in the building. And it's, I think the hockey world is super small as it is, but it's just like picking up where you were, last year, 2 years ago, 10 years ago with Seth, right? Like, it's not too long ago that he was sitting in these stalls, right? And whenever he's in the building, he's always willing to sit and talk to kids, and he's just such a down-to-earth kid, and they all are, right? They all kind of are appreciative of the opportunity they had, and any opportunity they have to give back, they're always willing, which says more, I think, to their character than it is their hockey, right? Like, there's just, and that's important for us too, is not only developing good hockey players, but, good people, right? Because they are going to go into the real world and have to interact with other, people in the real world of jobs, and not everyone is fortunate enough to play a sport for a little bit or for a while, and yeah, it's just nice to see those guys back in the building for sure.
Even to that point, right, and building on Brad's, that's the family, right, that I think the rink does a really good job cultural wise of like bringing guys together and helping them pursue whatever path it is. Like London's doing awesome with Vancouver, but he's killing it with his music, career, or however you want to phrase that. And then, Seth, I wasn't lucky enough to, be around when Seth was around, but come summertime when we're on the ice together, it feels like I was, right? Like he makes you feel a part of everything, and asks for opinions and like your help, and heck, he's doing a heck of a job for himself, and he's asking still questions like, hey, what would you do? What would you, right? Like, so I think that part is special for our program, and then just my team was just in Edmonton, and I was just telling the guys this. We were just in Edmonton last weekend, and we got to watch an Oil Kings game. And right now the face of the franchise is Gavin Hodnett, right? Who we had, and I'm lucky enough to say that I was able to coach him for a year, that kind of year and a half-ish. And he's the same type as Seth, right? Like, he'll come into the building, he knows everyone's names, he hasn't forgotten anyone, he asks questions. So it's really unique to see that, him standing side by side with McDavid hasn't changed him, right? He is still very much down to earth. He's a very professional young individual, and it was so cool to watch, like, bring my team that I have currently into the Rogers place, where hundreds of people have his jersey on, right? And you see Hodnett and the captain, and so that was a really cool experience. And not to be overshadowed, but we had Ethan Simcoe. He was in net for the Oil Kings, who again I got to coach. So we got to chat after the game. Really awesome. They played PA, so that's Kostiak. That was Ethan Bibu, right? Like, he came through. Hildebrand was injured, but he was there, right? Like, you're starting to see a lot of these guys move on to different teams, and it's so, I don't know, almost, you get those like tingles when you see Hodnett line up across from Kostiak. And you're like, oh man, this is what you guys dreamed of, right? Yeah. This level, and you're going toe to toe. So, alumni wise, it is, I think the program now is starting to see the seed that we've planted, and all these kids coming through, whether it is WHL or even, Lambos and Ladyman. They come back in the summer, and Lambos is going through for like a doctorate or something like that. Lambos, yeah. Like, and then his brother is with Iowa, up and down with the Wild. So just different paths, but a lot of the habits that they continue to build on, we helped start or helped, imply. So yeah, just really cool that the alumni coming through are creating that family tie every time.
Yeah. Well, I think that, Jeff said it's a family, right? Like, it's true, right? Like, there's, we, as coaches, we've had a little bit, obviously some interaction on the ice, which is a big part of their game. But testify in the gym, they do so many good things up there with that, right? And then your guys on the media side helping to promote some of these guys, and it's just, there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff. These guys are in the spotlight, but and I don't think they forgot where they've come from, right? And that's why they keep coming back here, because they know, the product that is provided for them works, right? Otherwise, they may not be where they are. So, yeah, it's cool to see them, and the relationships that we've built with them. You're able to have those, interactions where it's a little off the cuff type of stuff, and the chirps and the jabs and that sort of stuff, right? Like with, Jarvie on the ice in the summers, right? Like, he's just one guy that's just never stops talking, right? So you can give it right back to him, and he's, sometimes those conversations will elevate, but it's fun to see these guys out there for sure.
Like, they're still kids.
Yeah.
Right? Like, even though Jarv is somehow managing to live on his own, like, he's still a kid, right? So when he comes back, same with Pix, like, all those guys, they're just, kids at heart. I think, like, character is a very broad, general way to unfortunately define something, right? Like, we're trying to implement stuff on the ice, whether it's, hard work, paying attention to details, right? The hockey-based character side, playing between whistles, right? That kind of stuff. But, what the program, I think, is focused more on, I'll say, is the full circle character of, volunteer work, right? So, whether it's, we did in past years, like buddy check for Jesse. We've done hampers. We just did the Christmas hampers this year. We've done Winnipeg Harvest. We do superhero hockey every year. So they're immersed in volunteer. And I think on a couple pieces, a lot of our kids are quite fortunate to be able to play and participate in our program. And a lot of the volunteer opportunities, they have to see individuals that aren't as fortunate, right? And if we're doing hampers, Christmas hampers for, individuals that are struggling right now or have been for a while, it's a great chance for them to, see what chance our players have, and maybe they take that and run with it a little more, right? So whether it's volunteer, whether it's Mike with kind of the leadership and LifeWorks, understanding teamwork, understanding, like, for example, financial, right? Like, how do you use a debit card, right? Those things, everyone is so tapping this, tapping that, but then tap doesn't work. What do you do? How do you pay? Like, there's a lot of those little life lessons and situations that come into play that, again, way more than hockey, right? So the character side, I think, at the end of the day, we're also trying to build individuals that hold each other and themselves accountable, that they are focused on their time management, and they do a good job compartmentalizing, right? Whether it's at school, they're focused on their math, science, English. They get picked up, they come to their rink. So now they're focused on their, on ice play. And that's what we talked about with your hard work, your details. They go up to the gym and now they're focused on training. So they're, again, their details, but now they're focused more on their mechanics and their, this and that. So there's a lot of moving pieces in that work day that is, again, trying to build some character into them. And you can use words like whatever, sacrifice or courage, like all those, but until they live it, they don't fully understand, like, what does courage mean? Well, we're going to block a shot. Yeah, but then you're also going to have to tell your teacher, hey, we don't get in till 6. Like, I'm not going to be able to write the test. Is it okay if I do it another day? Like, that's courage to step out of your shell and talk. And that, again, right, like, that's part of that character trait that we're looking to build on.
Yeah, well, just to expand to that, it's a culture too that we've built within our program, from day one, that we talk about often in the recruiting part, is just making sure that, you're going to recruit good hockey players, but you want good people as well, right? So there's an expectation on how you behave, not only in the building, when you travel, at school, in the airports, in the hotels, and restaurants. I think as coaches, we take a lot of pride in the fact that when we do visit restaurants or hotels or wherever, we get a lot of compliments on how well behaved our team was, right? How you dress, how your appearance, that type of stuff. We were fortunate this year to work with Leah Hextall, and she talked about how to deal with media, right? So people are going to have an impression of you before they even talk to you, just by the way you carry yourself, right? So you're a young player, you come out of the dressing room, hair's messy, tie's not tied, versus a guy comes out in suit looking sharp, hair's combed, right? You're going to have two opinions of that kid before you even talk to them, right? And that's you talk about, Jeff talks about work ethic and that stuff, but it's habits, right? It's body language. It's stuff that we continually preach to our guys because of the fact that, there are a lot of eyes on these players. And, a scout's going to come watch a player, and he's going to watch, how do you interact with your other players on your team? How do you handle, maybe you missed a wide open net. What's your body language like? When you get back to the bench, how do you interact with your coach? Do you slam water bottles, slam your sticks, right? So all that stuff gets noticed. So we have to continually remind our guys of just making sure that body language for sure is huge, but just making sure that you're, buying into what it is we preach, right? Because you're going to be here for a year, 2 years, 3 years, but this program has been here for 9 years before you got here. It's hopefully going to be here for another 9 after you, and we have to make sure that we hold everyone to the same standards, right? The accountability of just behaving and being a good person. Hockey, like I said, hockey is going to end at some point, but you are going to have to be, we're going to have to be a team at work, right? Whether you're working with other colleagues or whatever it is, you have to be able to think for yourself. And, our guys learn how to, check themselves in at airports, how to, go ask for a new room key because I forgot my room key for the 10th time this weekend at the front desk type of thing, right? How to, manners for yes, please, no thank yous at the restaurants, right? That sort of stuff, right? Which might be a small thing in some people's opinion, but I think it just makes you, us, everybody in the RINK family just maybe a little bit you know,
Upper echelon.
no, not upper echelon, but it's just habits, right? Like how much energy does it take to say thank you or no thank you or please or hold the door open for somebody, that type of thing, right? Where
it's memorable, right? Like,
yeah,
so if you go to a restaurant and we say, hey, Red Barn, RINK? Yeah. They don't even know who I am.
Yeah.
They just know the RINK.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. I mean, it's like, again, like I get comments from waitresses. Oh, we had a team in here the other day. Like, coaches didn't care. Like, they were just running around the restaurant. It's like, okay, well, it's good to know for us because we are doing, the right thing on that side of it, right? So
having, multiple teams on kind of similar schedules, it allows myself to watch a lot of Brad's kids, right? So a good chance a lot of them are going to come to me, if not 17. Hey, maybe the odd one jumps to 18. But it gives me instant feedback for practices, how they are in the building, how they are in games. So I get to watch closely with those kids. So it's a recruiting tool without being a recruiting tool, right? Like, it's just a day-to-day, and I get to see that. So when we're watching, right, like Brad's doing his job of helping to mold them as individuals and as hockey players. And then on my side, it's, are they at my level? Are they past this level, right? And trying to place where these guys, should land and should fit. And that's the same for the U17 prep and the U18s. And then, collectively as a group, that's where it really comes down to it as, then we start talking with Brad. Hey, what do you think about, little Johnny? Where does he fit? What's your thoughts on him? And then he'll share. And then, Ian will come in and say, I really like Johnny at this situation, blah, blah, blah. So you have more than just one guy doing your recruiting. You have, whatever it is, 10 coaches plus your player development, plus your goalie development crew, the gym up and testify. And then, of course, like Scott, he's out watching the rinks for external. But same as what the kids want for exposure, like there's multiple eyes on them. So we are trying to find the best fit for them versus, just putting them in a spot. They might succeed, they might fail, but it's ultimately, us trying to find a good starting point for them, really.
Yeah, I think, with the addition of the 15 AAA team, it's going to help myself anyways at the U15 prep because, I will still have a new team, basically 20 new players every year. This year I've got 3 underagers that'll hopefully be back in the program next year, but it gives me an opportunity to watch those guys grow throughout the season, right? It's never recruiting is always tough. Obviously the cost of the program is a hurdle that a lot of people just can't get over, right? And that's just the way it is.
Yeah, I think like on recruiting side, when we start looking externally and honestly even internally, there's multiple factors, right? Like there's the financial, there's the logistical, right? Like you could have a player, for example, with us, lives in Toulon. So he's traveling every day, whatever that is, an hour into school every day, and then an hour home, winter roads, so there's logistics. And then if it's a returner, like I think some of those financials hit harder because it's not one and done, right? And I think that's, we talked about it earlier, that's part of the program or the rink is that we want to continue to work with kids like from start. And I don't think we can say finish because Jarvis still playing and we're still working with them, right? So we want to help them as much as we can. For some families, it is one and done, but some, can financially and logistically help themselves through 3-4 years. So that part of it becomes a challenge for sure. So in that case, we have the long chats, right? And I always say this, I don't want to be a car salesman and pressure you. Like if it doesn't work, it's not going to work, right? Like we don't want you going way below you need to make it work. So we have those longer discussions and our recruitment, has started and will continue, right? Through our ID skates that we'll hold come April, right? It gives a chance for, we have a U18 one. So it gives a chance for all of Brad's kids, all of my kids, Coach Ian's kids, and possible returners from Coach Rob to compare themselves against each other, right? So now you have apples to apples. Are you an 18? Are you 17 prep? Are you 17? Where do you fit in this? Helps us to kind of determine that as well. And then we have one for the 15s, right? So again, kids coming in, they can say, I played AAA, I played here last year, and it's now you're starting to compare. So again, more chances for you as a external to see what the process is like. Yeah. And from there, you start having those conversations with
I think with players internally, it's easy because they're already a part of the program, right? I think something that is maybe not common knowledge is any players that are outside of the program, and whatever age level it is, we have to abide by Hockey Manitoba, Hockey Canada rules as far as tampering, right? So if anybody is at all interested, even in just getting a little bit of information, we encourage them to reach out to us first. We can't actively recruit anybody or talk to anybody that is currently playing, rostered on a team, whether it's in the province, outside the province, right? So I think that's something that a lot of people don't know, because they're, some might feel slighted that, you've talked to, this guy over here, but you haven't talked to us. And well, it's because they reached out to us, right? Like, sure, we're interested in you, but we can't actually take the first step, right? So I think if more people are aware of that, and, that might help start those conversations earlier, get you in the building, get you the information you want, and then, you kind of go from there, right? I mean, and the other thing too is there's always, the rumor mill in the hockey world is crazy, right? So, I heard this guy's coming, I heard it's, triple digit, hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's like it's the full spectrum of rumors. So, just reach out, and, better to hear from the horse's mouth than, you pass that one comment around and it gets, by the time the 20th person, it's a completely different story, right? So if you're at all interested, reach out, just send a quick email. Hey, we're interested in this age level, and then we can go from there. But, I think, to Jeff's point, it's internally, we're going to watch these guys grow. Externally, with Scott's help in and around the rinks, identifying players that, I think need to be able to play at this level, but at the same time, we've had players that have, call them the late bloomers, that have come in at 15, have worked their butts off, and, maybe didn't get drafted this year, but have worked their way onto some lists, and then, eventually find themselves in the league that they're hoping to get to. So, and then you have the other side of that too, the guys that come in as top level guys that, for whatever reason, they're bigger and stronger and faster at U15, and then, guys start to catch up to them. I mean, Mother Nature is going to happen when it happens, right? Like, we've had, a variety of sizes at our level, but, the guys that work and put in the time and effort usually have success. Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, like Jeff said, you want to compare apples to apples, right? You want to get those guys in the building, so you're, 2011 will be the age group for next year. You want to get as many as you can in the building to see, right? Because that's the competition that you're going to be playing against, right? And it's just like for the U18 evaluation camp, there's for sure going to be some outside interest probably that are playing currently U15 that could challenge for U18 spots. But it's also, it's not a sprint. It's a marathon. You got to put in the time. Like, some people are so excited or so in a hurry to get to the finish line that they miss a few stops along the way, right? So it's not a slight that, if we were to say to a player, you're just not ready for U18 right now because, you've had a little bit of success at U15, but yeah, unless you've actually seen and watched the U18 level, man, there's some pretty good hockey. So, a majority of those guys are borderline WHL junior ready, right? Just for whatever reason, numbers wise on their junior team, they just don't have room for them. So they're, continuing to work at that level. And we've seen players that have gone from 15 to 18 that have struggled the first year because it is a big step, right? I think the addition of the 17 programs gives those guys a little bit more runway to get to where they need to be eventually. Yeah, I think my team this year is the textbook definition of that. Like, we started off the year, mind you, we did play some really good competition at the start of the year. I think our first weekend we played Shattuck St. Mary's. We lost 14-2, 17-1, something like that, right? But we have I'll give our guys credit. They've stuck to the process. They've bought into what we've been trying to preach. They put in a ton of work in the gym. You can see them getting stronger, and their conditioning is coming. Guys that are at my level of coming in, I got 20 new players with probably 20 new systems, 20 coaches that have coached them differently. They were the guy on their old team maybe, where now they're not, right? So they've got to buy into, maybe not getting as much ice time as they're used to in the past, right? Or being the top guy on the power play, whatever it is, right? So the quicker they can kind of figure that stuff out and realize that, okay, I am only one part of this team. I am not the whole team type of thing. And our guys have done that. Like they were probably eyes wide open with the competition, the level, but they've adjusted and said, you know what, like, yeah, maybe we're not at that level just yet, but we're working towards at least being competitive with those teams, right? And we have been. We've been in some close games with those top teams, and I think, the players see that, but I think the parents see that as well. They've seen where our team started on day one to where we are now, and it's been positive.
I think too, like character. Like we'll jump back to character. Like he has guys that start conversations now.
Yeah.
Right? Let alone like, hey, how's it going? Hey, and then gone.
Yeah.
Right? Now it's, hey, Coach Jeff, I don't coach you, but
yeah.
you're interacting with me. Like that's the bit of growth that you see so fast, right? Like 2 months, you have an early flight and it's helping each kid get onto the plane and then by the end you don't even need to show up, right? We could fly home a day early and the kids would still be fine on their own,
mm-hmm.
right? So that progression that we see in development of the kids is on ice, in the gym, their bodies just turn naturally, right?
Yeah.
Like they're getting size, they're getting bigger, they're tall, like getting taller, they're eating because they're on the ice so much, they're in the gym, so they're constantly eating, and you just continually see the kids changing quickly, right?
I think at my level, it's there's a lot more to learn, right? There's a lot of habits that need to be corrected. Again, to my earlier point, I get basically 20 new players every year, right? So if they're coming from different teams, that's 20 systems that they used last year, So for me, I have to take the first couple, 3-4 weeks to just kind of learn what kind of team I have, right? And then from there, it's not necessarily, okay, we have to do this system or this forecheck or this. It's just about developing those habits, right? So, you're driving to the net, you stop at the net. You're shooting, you try to hit the net, right? Like you turn the puck over, you got to be the hardest working guy back, right? Like making the proper reads, being above the puck, right? So stuff, and they may have heard these terms in the past, but they're going to hear them a ton going forward, right? Because the hockey world is a copycat world, right? Like if this team is having success with this power play, 20 other teams are going to try it, right? And all those different systems, right? So for me anyways, it's just about getting them to learn, okay, this guy's coming in, he's playing center all the time. Okay, well, you should probably learn how to play the wing, both sides, right? Some guys are going to be able to make that adjustment, but I got to make sure that I see if he can or not. And if he doesn't know how to do it, okay, what do we got to help him with to do that, right? Like defensemen too, something as simple as keeping your stick on the ice all the time, right? Or stick on puck, or being on the right side of these battles. It's about developing habits so that when they go to a different team, whether it's Jeff's team or a different program, those habits you can translate into any system that your coach is teaching, right? Because I'm hard on the forechecks, then I got to recover, or I'm stopping at the net. I'm going to get probably 5 extra goals a year if I just stop at the net instead of skating past it. Right, that type of stuff. So, you want to recruit kids that are obviously good people, good players, but kids that are going to be listening, kids that are going to coachable. And you know what? I think as hard as it is sometimes, I think parents have to put the trust in us as coaches that we are going to be doing the right things. They all have their own opinion of their own player. That's for sure. That doesn't change no matter where you go, right? But I think seeing the product that's not only in our dressing room but across the league, I think some are like, you know what, like maybe he isn't as good as I think he is, but if I trust what these guys are doing, they've turned out some pretty good players. So, let's just let go of the reins and see where that takes us, right? So not always easy at the start. I think, again, I'm going to use my team this year as an example. I think, parents are happy with the way their kids have developed, right? Some are going to develop quicker than others. That's just the way it is, right? But there's not as far as a gap now from top to bottom as there was, I think, at the start of the year. You're always going to have kids that are going to have excuses. but, like that type of thing. Sure, right? And you know what? Like I may see something that happens in the game quick, or Jeff sees something and they have a different opinion, and they be, okay, let's go watch the video to see exactly what happened, right? So, if I'm wrong, I'll admit I'm wrong, but they have to be, willing to admit, yeah, you know what, I was wrong. I took the wrong angle, or, I was cheating offensively because whatever, right? So there's a lot of tools at our disposal that we can help these kids with. Video being another, a big part of that. Just, when you actually see and see yourself playing, it's because the game is so fast, right? Things are going to happen quick. So we can kind of go back and say, okay, maybe next time we're going to think about trying this versus, that. So,
I mean, we'll still get, we'll get a good turnover of returners, but we'll always have to, go external and find some players. And selfishly, if Brad does his job, right, we don't have to build new habits for those kids, right? And so we're lucky in that aspect that Brad does a good job of creating that foundation for the guys, and wherever they do end up, it's almost like we can wait to get after them, right? Like you help the new guys for September and October, and then we're gonna jump on and right, like get after it kind of deal. So externally, I think when we talk about finding the right family externally, there's a few factors that come into it. In my case, I like doing the tours that we offer here of what a day would look like as an RHA athlete. So the family will come in, we'll walk them through boardroom sessions, discuss what that would look like, different things we do in the boardroom, video, Mike, Colin, our mental performance coach, Leah Hextall, right? And then we look into the training side, right? The training sheet side. So how that looks, what we look at. The big ice, that's where we kind of talk about our league, what to expect, how many games, where you're playing, what you're doing, tournaments, playoffs. We get up to the gym, and then we kind of tour a little bit in and around the dressing rooms and this dressing room. And that whole process, I try to spend as much time with the kid, right? And I think where we've done a really good job is of that we're kind of selling the program to the kid with the mums and dads and grandmas and grandpas and whoever else in the background. And you can always tell they're taking notes down and they got questions ready. And then during that process, we challenge the kids, right? So I think for me, the big one is self-awareness, right? Like I always ask the question on the training sheet, give me 3 things that you need to work on that are skill related, right? And you'll get the kids that are intelligent and knowledgeable of saying, or are my shooting mechanics. And then you'll get the kids that aren't fully understanding what skills versus tactical is, right? So they'll say, oh, my forecheck or power play. So those are the kids that we want to continually challenge because that they like the game. That's why they're here. That they want to get better. Again, that's why they're interested. So now we're going to start shaping them, right? So we have those conversations with the kids, questions from kids, hopefully not all the time, more from mums and dads, and what does this look like? When you travel, what does it look like? Well, we're on a bus unless we hit mountains, right? Then we fly over mountains to BC. The bus is ours, right? So it's just the kids, things like that. So I think what's really important is they get that time to see what the facility is like, to meet the trainers, to meet the different coaches that are all on their helping hand, if you call it. And then externally, the world is going quite technical. So we have access to multiple different video, right? Like whether it's Live Barn, Flow Hockey, Sport Contract. I'm sure there's multiple other ones. So if I'm in Calgary, I can still watch, the U15 AAA League and see on Live Barn, hey, here's little Johnny, right? We're gonna see if we can't connect with that family and discuss the opportunity. So I think that's there. Scott does a good job, Scott Unger, right? Like he'll do a good job externally. But for me, the external families, those are the ones that I need to do a good job with my research, right? Because the easiest ones to sell are the ones that are coming back from the program. They know what it's about. They've seen the progress. They've seen everything. They're like, yeah, sign me up. The ones that are coming in, we got to make sure it's a right fit, right? Financially, logistically, whatever the case is. So there's a lot of boxes that we need to check in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, tampering is just, we can't talk to them, right? So if there's, and then once you explain, hey, listen, we just can't talk to you until you reach out. Okay, that makes sense, right? So, I mean, common questions are going to be, how do you travel? So, in the hotel, for example, how many players in a room, right? So every player gets their own bed. So it's usually 2 players to a room, right? Meals on the road, as coaches, we will, plan those out, order those in advance. Travel by bus to Alberta and Saskatchewan. We fly to BC. What does a typical weekend look like? It's typically 3 games. Whether you're playing the same team or, you go to a showcase where you're playing 3 different teams from your league, number of home games. It's not always a 50-50 split. We have been over the years getting, more home games than when we first started, whether that's because we're hosting showcases or, there's just more teams kind of closer to us that are willing to travel. So, those are the common questions, As speaking for myself, when I talk about ice time, it's going to be fairly fair play, right? I talk about making sure everyone is learning the different positions, the different roles and responsibilities on 5-on-5, PK, PP, all that stuff, and then I explained to them that by the time we come down to the playoffs, we've had 40, 45, 50 games to audition for those, special roles, call them, the power plays. And not everybody's going to be a power play guy, but maybe he's a PK guy or vice versa, right? So I think by then they're fair. They agree that, okay, that's plenty of time to kind of try out for those. But at the same time, if I have 2 power play units that I'm comfortable with and these guys just aren't getting it done, these guys have got to know what it is in case I got to throw one of them or 2 of them out there, right? So I think it's common. And maybe I'm misspeaking here, but certain teams, certain organizations are going to just run with their top 6, their top 3, and you're going to, the ice time is not going to be fair. And whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. I at this level, I don't agree with that. That's going to happen for these guys soon enough when they get to junior, because it is, a coach to win type of thing, right? That's not what we're about. We're about just making sure these guys, first and foremost, I think, have fun, enjoy the game, and want to contribute to the team. So there's always other questions that are going to pop up on an individual basis, but I think the majority is just travel, game numbers, tournaments, what the hotel situations and that stuff is like, and those are easy to answer.
Yeah, I was just going to say ditto, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think the only 2 things that I would maybe add on would be, like financials. Right, that definitely always comes up, which it should. But I think as we go through that tour that I talked about earlier, the financials change to value, right? They're like, oh, I see the value in this versus, oh, I see myself paying this, right?
Yeah.
See the value of being in a personal trainer, right? 5 days a week. Where are you going to find that? Or what are you now paying outside of that?
Yeah. Right.
So I think once we go through the facility and answer the questions that Brad brought up, like that turns into a value, and they, for the most part, like families see that value and they can either work with it or can't, right?
Yeah.
The other one I would say would be not so much on them, it's more on, I guess, our side, would be like deadlines, right? Like using AAA as an example, they don't start till September, right, with their trial process, maybe late August trial process. For us, our teams have to be, ready and solidified by like early August, right? So our process has to be started well in advance, and that's why we utilize that ID camp So we can see who's interested in the program, number one, start filling our teams, number two, and then if there are spots left, then start reaching out and saying, would you be interested in having those talks? Because the last one is our school deadline too, right? Like that's to get into Shaftesbury, that's May. So that's a big piece that we also have to facilitate early in this recruiting process.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to actually come into the building to see first and foremost what it is you're getting, right? Or what's a part of the whole process, and not only the building, but go, visit the school, talk to the school, talk to past players or families that have been through the program, right? If you have the opportunity to come and watch a game or, come watch a practice kind of thing, ask yourself, okay, to Jeff's point earlier about the value, right? Like as a parent, what's your time worth in the evening, right? I mean, some people are, they work jobs all day and then they got to, and for some, we've had some people that say, you know what, I enjoy doing that, which that's fair, right? I enjoy going and watch my kid practice at night and that type of thing, right? So I think if you can come in and actually experience a day in the life, we always offer, players, in our off season in the spring, come in and skate with us, get in the gym, go to the school, right? That type of thing. See if it's actually something that as a player, you are willing to put the work in to do, right? For some, it's all the bells and whistles, but there's a lot of work that actually goes into the day, right? Not only here in the gym, but you've got to get up and go to school early. You've got to make sure you're doing your classes and assignments and all that stuff. So it's a demanding program. There's no question about it. And for some, it's just not for them, right? And those players that take advantage of everything we offer, you can see the trajectory that they're on. For the others, it's sometimes it's going to be a struggle. And as coaches, there's nothing easier than coaching guys that are just always fired up and ready to go, right? If you got to consistently try to light a fire under somebody, it doesn't make it enjoyable as a coach because you know that kid is maybe here for the wrong reasons, right? So, yeah, I think if you can experience it, ask as many questions as you can. We're not going to hide anything here. We're not going to, we'll give you all the information we have. I think our track record speaks for itself as far as the development side and the number of players that continually come back in the summer and do that sort of stuff. And even some players that have played here that are working here now, right? That just believe in the process and the development. So, I would say just come in and experience a day.
Yeah, I mean, I use the analogy with families, after explaining everything that the rink has to offer, right? You can look at it like a buffet. Right, so your kid is at the start of the buffet table, grabs his plate, and then you have your on ice with the teams, you have your on ice with skills, you have your gym, you have your off ice with boardroom, with video, with mental performance, nutrition, hydration, volunteer work, Leah Hextall, right? So you have your appetizers, your main meals, your desserts, and your desserts, right? But to Brad's point, like, are you filling it with just appetizers or are you going through, taking it and coming back for round 2 and round 3, right? Like, so it really is that buffet style of like, let's see what you put on your plate. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of the day, what we have to offer, bet on yourself, right? Like, if this is the right spot for you, show it, right? If not, then to Brad's point, it's not the spot for you because it is demanding. It's long hours. We got back from Edmonton at 5:30 a.m. yesterday. Like, it's tough, mm-hmm. right? But if you're willing and you're wanting, the results are going to be there for you. So, bet on yourself if you're looking for this.